Welcome to the Matte Shadow material support within Mosquito Render. In this video, we will be talking about the Matte Shadow material and how we can use it inside of Mosquito Render to create some interesting effects. The great thing here is that Mosquito Render already supports most of the materials that come with 3D Studio Max by default, including the Mental Ray Matte Shadow reflection material. And what we have here in this scene, let me just explain short what we see here. We have a 2D object, shape object that's just extruded with a zero thickness. And we have a 3D artificial object we have here we want to integrate into our photo. And the photo we use is the skyline from Hong Kong, a very old picture. I just grabbed it from an old 3D Studio Max installation. But that's not the point here in this video tutorial. So if I would start rendering, you can see already that we get a pretty nice integration of our artificial or new building in here in this skyline. And let me just move over here the active shade. And now the great thing here is with active shade activated, we can move around our building. And as you can see, it updates in real time. And there's only a few things I might want to change or modify here. As we can see in our picture, we have this bright sun, direct sun effect on this side. That's kind of a little bit missing here. So what we are going to do is, let me just move that down. We have a daylight system in here in this scene. And I'm going to adjust the mosquito sun. Right now we use just the mosquito sun, including our sky for illumination of this building. And we are just going to adjust the sun intensity. So I'm now going to increase the sun multiplier. And as you can see, let me just overdo it a little bit. Now we get this very bright sunlight effect. I think that's way too strong to match the sun here. So I'm going to dial it down a little bit. And as you can see, we have here pretty good feedback of our intensity of the sunlight. So I'm going for this kind of sunlight right now. And we can also dial down the skylight. Now you can see our building becomes really, really dark. And we could now dial back the reflections as well. But let me just add some sky color here as well to match it with these buildings here. So on the back side, it's pretty dark. On the sun, where the sun strikes the building, it's pretty bright. So that's the cool thing. And the great thing is, with our matte object, we can move this building right now all where we want, and we can adjust all the parameters in real time, and we will get a real-time update. We can adjust the height, for example. So if we wanted to create a new building, we can change the height, move it there. However, if you're building a new building for a skyline, you want to make sure that you're the biggest in town. So let's make it a little bit bigger. And that's all the cool things you can do with Mosquito Render. Because right now, the updates are pretty instantly. You can move around. You can adjust the materials in real time. Let's just go maybe back to the materials. Let me bring back down the sky light multiplier. So we have it now really dark. And I could go to the material. And the material we have here is a simple arc and design material where we can have the adjustive reflectivity, the strength of our reflections. And I'll dial that down as well. And as you can see, it becomes less reflective and gets darker and darker. So I can dial back in our skylight, and then you just play around with the parameters. That's the cool thing and the great thing about Mosquito Render. You now work inside of your final picture, final image, and final rendering. And let me show you now with a different scene how to actually set up a matte shadow material. I'm going to load a different scene for this. So I loaded this scene Also, a pretty simple scene, really easy setup. We have an object here, a character, we have this mirror ball here, and a plane. So if we were to render right now as it is, we would get this result. And what we actually want to achieve here is we want to integrate our characters as if they were standing on the road. So right now we need to turn this plane into a matte shadow object or material. And I'm going to do that right now. So what we are going to do, that's our floor or ground material. I'm going to select the matte shadow reflection material from the list of materials. If you didn't see or watch our previous video, make sure you have show incompatible turned on. That will give you all the mental ray materials which are perfectly supported by Mosquito Render. So I'm going to just select that. And with the mental ray matte shadow reflection, you have to do a little bit different things than in the standard matte shadow material. So we have to drag our background image over here to make sure that we get the effect we are after and we want. So the matte shadow material has a lot of options, a lot of effects we can turn on and off if we wanted. So, but for now, that's okay. And we are just going ahead. And as you can see, bam, we have the effect we want. Now, the only thing that's a little bit awkward is that the shadows are so dark. So to compensate for that, we are going to adjust the shadow intensity. So now we can dial up the shadow intensity, and you will see something remarkable. It doesn't really change a lot. And the reason for that is we are using right now in the environment the mental ray photographic exposure control. And this is supported as well. So Mosquito Render has its own exposure control, which by the way we suggest to use because it's much more accurate and much better integrated. However, for the sake of compatibility, you can also use the MR photographic exposure control. And depending on if you're working unitless or with physical units, you have to adjust your shadow values or your multipliers accordingly. So right now, to get our shadow brighter, we need to go into the 20-30 range. Now you see the shadow becomes a little bit more transparent. So I think that looks good, and we can have that right now like this. And again, the great thing here is Mosquito Render allows you to do these interactive adjustments of materials, including the matte shadow material, where you get instant feedback. Another effect we can add if we want. It doesn't make much sense right now in this situation. However, just to show you that this is also supported with Mosquito Render, we just turn on the reflections. And as you can see, now we have the reflections as well in here. And the same is true here. We can adjust the glossiness of the reflections. We can turn them up and down. We can make them really, really blurry. And as we control here, you can see it turns blurry, and with the iterations it gets better and better. So you have full control, interactive control with these kind of materials. One other important thing to note about this is by default our alpha channel would not be correct and working, because what we really want is just our objects and not the plane in here. To solve this, you need to use another mental ray specific shader or material, and that's the mental ray. Let me just go in here, the background environment background switcher, and if you wanted the camera map for getting the correct alpha channel. So right now I'm going to use the background camera map shader. I will use the same picture, so we get our background in here. And now, if we would render again, we will get proper alpha channels. As you can see, we now have the proper alpha channel in here. And if we want to get back the reflection from our background, we would just use the background environment switcher, and then we have everything set up. If you want to know how all these materials work, because that's not specific to Mosquito Render, that's standard 3D Studio Max. So Mosquito Render exactly uses the materials as they are used in 3D Studio Max, and Autodesk has a great help file, great tutorials out there that will tell you how to use these materials. I hope you enjoyed this little video, and please check out the other manual and tutorial videos as well, so that you can learn how Mosquito Render is used and works.